Wait, what do you mean it happened 2 weeks ago? I asked Uncle Benjamin, my heart suddenly racing as his words echoed in my mind. He looked at me with genuine confusion, his weathered face creasing into a frown. Natalie, sweetheart, Gabriella's wedding was beautiful. The ceremony at St. Andrew's was lovely, and the reception afterward was quite the celebration. I thought you were just running late when I didn't see you there. The coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering against the kitchen floor of my Denver home. Coffee splattered across the white tiles like drops of my shattered trust. I stood frozen, staring at the mess, while Uncle Benjamin's words replayed in my mind. My sister Gabriella had gotten married 2 weeks ago, and I hadn't even known about it. But she told me the wedding was next week, I whispered, my voice barely audible. She called me 3 days ago to confirm I was coming. She even asked if I could bring my famous chocolate cake. Uncle Benjamin's expression shifted from confusion to concern. Oh dear, Natalie. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. The wedding definitely happened. Your parents were there. Your cousin Victoria flew in from Portland. Even your Aunt Helen made the trip despite her hip surgery. My name is Natalie Rose, and I'm 36 years old. I work as a freelance event planner in Denver, Colorado, and I've built a successful business organizing weddings, corporate retreats, and special celebrations. For the past 15 years, I've prided myself on never missing an important family event. I'm the one who remembers birthdays, sends graduation cards, and shows up with homemade dishes for every gathering. Being excluded from my own sister's wedding felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Did anyone mention why I wasn't there? I asked, already dreading the answer. Uncle Benjamin looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Well, your sister said you were too busy with work to attend. She seemed quite upset about it, actually. Said something about how you'd become distant lately and couldn't make time for family anymore. The lie hit me like a physical blow. I had rearranged my entire schedule for what I thought was her upcoming wedding. I had turned down 3 lucrative clients and canceled a weekend trip to Aspen just to be available. The chocolate cake I'd planned to make was already written on my shopping list, ingredients carefully noted in my phone. I had even bought a new dress, a beautiful navy blue number that still hung in my closet with the tags attached. That's not true, I said firmly, my shock beginning to transform into something sharper. That's not true at all. Uncle Benjamin must have seen something dangerous flicker in my eyes because he quickly reached for my hands. Natalie, I'm sure there's an explanation. Maybe there was some confusion with the dates or the invitations got mixed up in the mail. But I knew better. Gabriella and I had been talking about this wedding for 8 months. We had discussed every detail, from the flowers to the music to the seating arrangements. She had asked for my professional advice on vendors, and I had spent hours researching photographers and caterers for her. This wasn't a mix-up or miscommunication. This was deliberate. My sister Gabriella is 2 years younger than me, but she's always been the golden child in our family. Where I'm practical and hardworking, she's charming and spontaneous. Where I build my success through careful planning and dedication, she seems to float through life having opportunities fall into her lap. Our parents have always adored her carefree spirit, often overlooking her tendency to be thoughtless or cruel when it suited her purposes. Growing up, I was the responsible older sister who helped with homework, drove her to soccer practice, and covered for her when she broke curfew. I watched her get away with behavior that would have landed me in serious trouble. When she dropped out of college to pursue modeling, our parents called it brave and artistic. When I chose a stable career in event planning, they worried I was being too cautious and missing out on life's adventures. Over the years, I had noticed a pattern in Gabriella's behavior. She would call me when she needed something, advice, money, connections, or simply someone to listen to her problems. But when it came time for my achievements or milestones, she was mysteriously busy or distracted. When I bought my first house, she showed up to the housewarming party an hour late and spent most of the evening talking about her latest boyfriend. When I won a prestigious industry award last year, she congratulated me with a text message that felt more obligatory than genuine. Uncle Benjamin, I said slowly, What exactly did my family say about my absence? I need to know the truth. He sighed heavily and sat down at my kitchen table. Your mother mentioned that you'd been too focused on work lately to maintain family relationships. Your father said something about how success had changed you, made you think you were too important for family gatherings. And Gabriella, well, she seemed genuinely hurt. She kept saying she wished her sister cared enough to be there on the most important day of her life. Each word felt like another betrayal. They had crafted a narrative that painted me as the selfish, career-obsessed sister who had abandoned her family. Meanwhile, I had been sitting in my home office, carefully planning my schedule around a wedding that had already happened, believing I was the loving sister who would never miss such an important moment. Did anyone think to call me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I'm sorry, dear. I assumed you already knew and had chosen not to come. After Uncle Benjamin left, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the coffee stains on the floor and trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. The silence in my house felt heavy and oppressive, broken only by the ticking of the antique clock on my mantel. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my recent conversations with Gabriella, reading her messages with new eyes. 3 days ago, she had texted, "Can't wait for next week. Are you still planning to make your chocolate cake? Trevor is so excited to meet you properly." Trevor was her fiancé of 6 months, a marketing executive I had met briefly at a family barbecue. He seemed nice enough, though I had noticed he had a tendency to interrupt conversations and dominate discussions about his work at Kristen Global, a mid-sized advertising agency in downtown Denver. Now I realized the cruel irony of her message. She was asking about a cake for a wedding that had already happened, probably laughing with Trevor about how gullible her sister was. The thought of them sharing private jokes about my ignorance made my stomach turn. I called my mother, hoping against hope that Uncle Benjamin had somehow gotten the dates wrong. "Oh, Natalie," my mother said when I asked about the wedding. Her voice carried that particular tone she used when she was disappointed in me. "I was hoping you might call to apologize. Gabriella was heartbroken that you didn't show up. She kept looking toward the door during the ceremony, thinking you might still arrive." "Mom, I thought the wedding was next week. Gabriella specifically told me." "Honey, the invitations went out 2 months ago. You RSVP'd that you would attend. When you didn't show up and didn't call, we all assumed you had decided work was more important than your sister's happiness." I felt the blood drain from my face. I never received an invitation, and I definitely never RSVP'd. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "That's impossible, Natalie. I helped Gabriella address the envelopes myself. Your invitation was definitely sent." But as I hung up the phone, I realized what had happened. Gabriella had deliberately excluded me from her wedding while maintaining the illusion that I was invited. She had let our entire family believe I had chosen not to attend, destroying my reputation as the reliable, caring sister while positioning herself as the victim of my supposed selfishness. I walked to my home office and opened the drawer where I keep important documents. There, tucked behind some old tax returns, I found something that made my blood run cold. A white envelope with my name written in Gabriella's distinctive handwriting. Inside was her wedding invitation, dated for the correct day 2 weeks ago. She had sent it to me after the wedding had already taken place, probably planning to use it as evidence that she had tried to include me. The cruelty of her deception took my breath away. This wasn't just about excluding me from one event. This was about systematically destroying my relationships with our family, while making me look like the villain in my own story. For 3 days after discovering the truth about Gabriella's wedding, I barely left my house. I called in sick to work and spent my time trying to understand how my own sister could orchestrate such an elaborate betrayal. The worst part wasn't just being excluded from the wedding. It was realizing that my entire family now viewed me as selfish and unreliable based on Gabriella's lies. I started making phone calls to other family members, trying to gauge how much damage had been done to my reputation. The conversations were painful but revealing. Cousin Victoria from Portland told me she had specifically asked about my absence at the reception, and Gabriella had tearfully explained that I had become too successful to care about family anymore. Aunt Helen, despite her recent hip surgery, had made the effort to attend, because she thought it was important to support Gabriella during my abandonment. Each conversation confirmed that Gabriella had carefully constructed a narrative that painted her as the wronged party and me as the cold, career-obsessed sister who had outgrown her family. The sophistication of her manipulation was breathtaking. She hadn't just excluded me. She had used my exclusion as an opportunity to strengthen her position as the family's beloved daughter while casting me as the outsider. On Thursday evening, my phone rang. Gabriella's name appeared on the screen, and for a moment, I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to hear how she would handle this conversation, knowing what I now knew. "Natalie," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "I've been meaning to call you. How are you doing?" The casual tone of her voice made my hands shake with anger. "I'm doing well, Gabriella. How was your honeymoon?" "Oh, it was magical. Trevor and I went to Cabo, and the weather was perfect. I have so many pictures to show you. But listen, I wanted to talk to you about something important." I gripped the phone tighter. "What's that?" "Well, Trevor and I were talking, and we realized we never really had the honeymoon we wanted. Cabo was nice, but it was so crowded and touristy. We were wondering, would you be willing to let us use your mountain lodge for a long weekend? We know how private and beautiful it is up there, and it would mean the world to us to have some quiet time together as newlyweds." My mountain lodge. The property I had worked for 5 years to purchase. A beautiful cabin nestled in the Rocky Mountains about 2 hours outside Denver. It was my sanctuary, the place where I went to recharge and find peace. The fact that Gabriella was asking to use it now, after what she had done, showed a level of audacity that left me speechless. "You want to use my lodge?" I asked carefully. "Yes. We were thinking maybe next month. We could even help with maintenance or cleaning while we're there. Trevor is really handy with repairs, and I know you mentioned the deck railing needed some attention. It would be like a working vacation for us and a favor for you." The request was so brazen that I almost laughed. She had systematically destroyed my family relationships and was now asking me for favors as if nothing had happened. It was clear she believed her manipulation had been successful, and that I remained oblivious to her betrayal. "That's an interesting idea," I said slowly. "Let me think about it and get back to you." "Oh, thank you. I knew you'd understand. You're such a good sister, Natalie. I love you so much." The words felt like acid in my ears. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, staring out at the Denver skyline and thinking about Gabriella's request. A plan began forming in my mind, a plan that would give me the opportunity to show my family exactly who my sister really was. The next morning, I drove to my mountain lodge to begin preparations for what I was already thinking of as my masterpiece of revenge. The property sat on 15 acres of pristine wilderness, with a main cabin, a guest house, and a stunning view of the Continental Divide. As I walked through the rooms, I began to envision exactly how I would expose Gabriella's true nature to the world. But first, I needed to make some important phone calls. The previous month, I had attended a networking event for event planners in Denver, where I had met Jacqueline Torres, a television producer who specialized in reality programming. She had mentioned that her company, Gravelock Technologies, was always looking for authentic, unscripted content that captured real human drama. At the time, I had filed away her business card without much thought. Now, it felt like destiny. "Jacqueline, this is Natalie Rose. We met at the event planning conference last month," I said when she answered her phone. "Of course, the event planner with the mountain property. How are you doing?" "I'm well, thank you. I'm calling because I have what might be an interesting opportunity for your production company. I'm dealing with some family drama that could make for compelling television, and I have the perfect location to film it." Jacqueline's interest was immediately piqued. Tell me more. I explained the situation with Gabriella's wedding deception and her current request to use my lodge. I'm thinking about setting up cameras throughout the property and inviting not just Gabriella and her husband, but our entire extended family for what they think will be a casual reunion weekend. They don't know I'm aware of what happened at the wedding, so they'll probably continue their narrative about how I've become too selfish and career-focused for family. That's brilliant, Jacqueline said. The authentic family dynamics, the beautiful location, the built-in conflict, this could be exactly what we're looking for. Would you be interested in a partnership where you get a producer credit and a significant portion of the profits? The offer was better than I had hoped. Not only would I get my revenge, but I would also be launching a new career in television production. I'm very interested. What would be the timeline? We could have a minimal crew in place within 2 weeks. Hidden cameras, discreet audio equipment, the works. The family wouldn't know they were being filmed until the big reveal. Are you prepared for the fallout when this airs? I thought about Uncle Benjamin's confused face when he told me about attending a wedding I didn't know had happened. I thought about my mother's disappointed tone when she explained how heartbroken Gabriella had been by my absence. I thought about every family member who now believed I had chosen work over family because of my sister's lies. I'm prepared, I said firmly. Over the next week, I worked with Jacqueline and her team to plan every detail of what we were calling Family Reunion, Mountain Lodge. The premise was simple. I would invite my extended family for a weekend at my lodge under the guise of celebrating Gabriella and Trevor's marriage and giving them the honeymoon they deserved. The family would think they were attending a private celebration, but in reality, they would be participating in a reality show that would expose the truth about Gabriella's deception. The cameras would capture everything. The family's continued narrative about my supposed selfishness, Gabriella's manipulation tactics, and most importantly, the moment when I revealed the truth about her wedding deception. The show would culminate in my announcement that I had secretly married Jacqueline's business partner, producer David Kim, 2 weeks earlier, the same weekend as Gabriella's wedding. The irony was perfect. While my family was attending Gabriella's wedding and discussing my absence, I was actually getting married in a small ceremony in Los Angeles. The marriage to David had happened quickly, but it wasn't impulsive. We had been dating for 8 months after meeting through Jacqueline at a film industry event in Los Angeles. David was kind, intelligent, and most importantly, he understood my ambition and drive. When he proposed during a quiet dinner at his home in Malibu, I said yes immediately. We had originally planned to have a larger ceremony later in the year, but when I learned about Gabriella's wedding date, we decided to have an intimate ceremony the same weekend. It felt like fate. While my family was celebrating Gabriella's marriage and discussing my absence, I was actually starting my own new chapter in life. David was fully supportive of my plan to expose Gabriella through the reality show. As an experienced producer, he understood the power of authentic storytelling and the importance of truth in family relationships. He also brought valuable technical expertise to our project, ensuring that we would capture every moment in high quality. The key, David explained as we reviewed the camera placement at the lodge, is to let them reveal themselves naturally. We're not manipulating the situation. We're just documenting their authentic behavior. I called Gabriella 2 weeks after our initial conversation about the lodge. I've been thinking about your request, I told her, and I'd love to have you and Trevor use the lodge. In fact, why don't we make it a whole family celebration? I feel terrible about missing your wedding, and I'd like to do something special to make up for it. Gabriella's excitement was immediate and genuine. Oh, Natalie, that would be amazing. But are you sure? I know how much your privacy means to you. I'm sure. Let's invite everyone. Mom, Dad, Uncle Benjamin, Cousin Victoria, even Aunt Helen if she's feeling up to the trip. We can make it a proper celebration of your marriage. That sounds perfect. Trevor will be so excited. When were you thinking? How about the first weekend in October? The fall colors should be gorgeous, and the weather will still be nice enough for outdoor activities. As I made the invitation calls to family members, I was struck by how eager everyone was to attend. Uncle Benjamin was thrilled about the opportunity to see the lodge again. My parents were pleased that I was finally making an effort to repair relationships with the family. Cousin Victoria was excited about a mountain getaway. Even Aunt Helen, despite her mobility challenges, insisted she wouldn't miss it. The enthusiasm in their voices made my heart ache a little. These people loved me, but they had been manipulated into believing I didn't love them back. Gabriella's deception had poisoned their perception of me, and this weekend would be my opportunity to show them the truth. Jacqueline's production team worked discreetly to install cameras throughout the lodge. Tiny lenses were hidden in smoke detectors, picture frames, and decorative objects. Audio equipment was concealed in furniture and light fixtures. The guest house was converted into a production control room, where the crew could monitor all the feeds without being detected. "We'll have complete coverage of every room except the bathrooms," Jacqueline explained during our final planning meeting. "The family will never know they're being filmed until you're ready for the big reveal." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would let the weekend unfold naturally, allowing Gabriella and the family to continue their narrative about my selfishness and career obsession. Then, during what they thought was a toast to Gabriella and Trevor's marriage, I would reveal the truth about her deception and announce my own marriage to David. Everything was ready. The stage was set for the most important performance of my life. The first weekend of October arrived with perfect autumn weather. The aspen trees surrounding my lodge had turned brilliant gold, and the morning air was crisp and clean. I stood on the deck, watching as cars began pulling up the gravel driveway, and felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness about what was to come. Gabriella and Trevor arrived first, their faces glowing with excitement as they stepped out of their car. Gabriella ran up the steps to hug me, and for a moment, I was struck by how genuinely happy she seemed. It made what was about to happen even more complex emotionally. "Natalie, this is incredible. The lodge looks even more beautiful than I remembered," she said, spinning around to take in the view. Trevor was equally enthusiastic. "This is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this place with us. Gabriella told me how special it is to you." Over the next hour, the rest of the family arrived. My parents hugged me warmly, though I detected a slight reserve in their manner, a reminder that they still believed I had missed Gabriella's wedding out of selfishness. Uncle Benjamin was his usual jovial self, immediately settling into a chair on the deck with a beer. Cousin Victoria brought her camera and started taking pictures of everything. Even Aunt Helen, moving carefully with her walker, seemed delighted to be there. As we gathered for drinks on the deck, I watched my family interact with new eyes. I noticed how quickly the conversation turned to Gabriella's wedding, and how beautiful it had been. I observed the glances they exchanged when Trevor mentioned how sorry he was that I had missed it. I saw how Gabriella positioned herself as the gracious sister who held no grudges, despite being hurt by my absence. "I just want everyone to be together," Gabriella said at one point, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "Family is the most important thing in the world to me. I don't care about missed events or misunderstandings. I just want my sister back." The performance was masterful, and I could see how effectively it reinforced their existing beliefs about our relationship dynamic. That evening, as we gathered in the main room for dinner, I suggested we share a toast to celebrate Gabriella and Trevor's marriage. Everyone eagerly raised their glasses, and I could see the genuine love and joy on their faces as they looked at the happy couple. "Before we toast," I said, standing at the head of the dining table, "I have something important to share with all of you." I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, then connected it to the large television screen on the wall. The family looked curious but unsuspecting as I scrolled through my photos. 2 weeks ago, on the same day as Gabriella's wedding, something wonderful happened in my life too, I said. The room fell completely silent as wedding photos appeared on the screen. Images of David and me exchanging vows in a beautiful ceremony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. "I got married," I announced simply. The gasps and exclamations of surprise filled the room, but I wasn't finished. "And since we're all being so honest about family events and invitations, I thought you might be interested to know that this weekend is actually being filmed for a reality television show." As if on cue, Jacqueline stepped out from the kitchen where she had been monitoring the production, followed by David and several crew members with professional cameras. Everyone, I'd like you to meet my husband, David Kim, and my business partner, Jacqueline Torres. For the past 2 days, your authentic family dynamics have been captured on camera for a show that will explore the complexities of family relationships and the consequences of deception. Gabriella's face went white as the full implications of what was happening began to sink in. The carefully constructed narrative she had built around my absence from her wedding was about to crumble on national television. The aftermath of the reality show's broadcast was swift and devastating for Gabriella and Trevor. The footage clearly showed their manipulation and lies, as well as the family's willingness to believe the worst about me without question. Gabriella's reputation in Denver's social circles was destroyed when the show revealed her calculating nature and deliberate cruelty. Trevor lost his position at Kristen Global when his employer saw how he had participated in the deception, damaging his professional prospects significantly. Their marriage, built on a foundation of shared dishonesty, began to crumble under the pressure of public scrutiny and mutual blame for the disaster. As I stood on the deck of my mountain lodge 6 months later, watching David set up his camera equipment for our next production project, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of Gabriella's betrayal had transformed into something powerful and purposeful: a successful television production company, and a marriage built on honesty and mutual respect. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals become the catalysts for the most beautiful transformations, and I had learned that the best revenge is simply living well while refusing to let others rewrite your story.